Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm David Kerr from Lansing in Michigan, and here are your latest news headlines from around the world. A new report by a Washington DC-based think tank suggests a continuing rise in attacks against churches across the United States. The survey by the Family Research Council found 69 incidents of vandalism, arson, gun-related incidents, bomb threats and other forms of hostility against churches in the first quarter of 2023. That's approximately 3 times the number of acts of hostility in the same time frame last year. The new report comes in the wake of last month's lethal attack upon a private Christian school in Tennessee that killed 3 children and 3 adults. Leaders of the Armenian and Greek Orthodox Church in the Holy Land are accusing the Israeli police of infringing upon freedom of worship after they imposed significant restrictions on the number of pilgrims allowed to attend this weekend's Orthodox Easter services in Jerusalem. The number of people allowed to attend Saturday's Holy Fire celebration at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre has been reduced by police from 8,200 to only 1,800. The police say their decision is based upon public safety concerns. The church leaders, though, have expressed their anger at the decision and say they will not cooperate. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is believed to be the site of Christ's crucifixion, burial, and resurrection. The state of Florida has passed a new law that will outlaw abortion after an unborn heartbeat is detected. That's usually around about 6 weeks of pregnancy. The Heartbeat Protection Act was signed into law by Republican Governor DeSantis on Thursday. It allows exceptions to save the life of the mother and in the cases of pregnancy caused by rape or incest up until 15 weeks of pregnancy. However, it does not allow the mailing of abortion medication. Florida currently has a 15-week abortion ban. It was signed into law by Governor DeSantis in 2022. That legislation has since been subject to a legal battle, and that dispute means that this week's new laws will only go into effect if the 15-week law is eventually upheld by the courts. The Nicaraguan government has expelled 3 nuns who were in charge of a nursing home in the southwestern city of Rivas. The 3 sisters belong to the Congregation of the Dominican Sisters of the Annunciation. 2 are Costa Rican and 1 is Guatemalan. The home's administrator, Sister Rosario Blanco, has served in that capacity for the past 24 years. The expulsion order issued on Wednesday was immediate and gave the nuns only 72 hours to leave the country. The move is but the latest incident in a long-running persecution of the church by the country's authoritarian president, Daniel Ortega. Pope Francis has criticised what he calls covert euthanasia in some healthcare systems, whereby the sick and the aged are denied access to all the medications required for their recovery. The Holy Father raised the issue with members of the Religious Association of Socio-Health Institutes of Italy at the Vatican on Thursday. He also said that no one must feel alone during illness. Instead, he said each sick person should be helped to walk the sometimes long and tiring road of infirmity with Christian hope. The US Department of Justice is to ask the country's Supreme Court to restore full access to an abortion drug after a lower court imposed restrictions on its use. On Wednesday, an appellate court blocked a Texas judge's ruling to halt approval of mifepristone, meaning the pill would remain available, but it invoked significant limits on its use, including barring pregnant mothers from receiving it by mail. Mifepristone is used in more than half of all US abortions. Now, the Justice Department will ask the country's top court to strike down the present limitations on the drug, which were set to take effect on Saturday. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice is also facing criticism after recommending no jail time for a suspect charged with vandalising a Catholic church in Washington state. 31-year-old man Maeve Nota was arrested in April 2022 following the attack upon St. Louis Church in Bellevue, which included the destruction of a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, anti-Catholic graffiti and smashed windows. The total cost of the damage was more than $30,000. During the attack, Nota also spray-painted a church employee's face and clothes. It's now emerged that Nota entered into a plea agreement in March with the Department of Justice, by which he will plead guilty to a misdemeanor charge of destruction to religious property in return for 3 years of probation. The crime can hold a maximum prison sentence of 1 year. It will now be for the courts in Washington state to decide. The Iranian authorities have released a prominent human rights lawyer from prison. 41-year-old Mustafa Nili had been given a 4-year prison sentence for supporting anti-hijab protests in the country. On Tuesday, however, it was revealed that he's been released after only 5 months in prison. The anti-hijab protest started last year after a 22-year-old ethnic Kurd, Mahsa Amini, died in custody after being detained for allegedly violating Iran's dress code for women. The third World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly will be observed by the Church on Sunday, July the 23rd. The date was confirmed this week in a statement released by the Vatican's Dicastery for Laity, Family and Life. The date of the event coincides with the feast day of Jesus' grandparents, St. Joachim and St. Anne. World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly was established by Pope Francis in 2021 because, said the Holy Father, grandparents are frequently overlooked, even though they are the link between generations, passing on the experience of life and faith to the young. All development policies must focus on humans. That was the central message of the Vatican's permanent observer to the United Nations, Archbishop Gabriel Caccia, this week. He was addressing the 56th session of the UN Commission on Population and Development, which is being held in New York on the theme of population, education and sustainable development. Archbishop Caccia said the core of development policies must always be respect for life from conception to natural death, as well as the promotion of the integral human development of every man, woman and child. Pope Francis has named Archbishop Miguel Mori Buendia as the new Apostolic Nuncio to Great Britain. The 67-year-old Spaniard succeeds Archbishop Claudio Gugerotti, who was appointed as the Vatican's prefect of the Dicastery for the Eastern Churches last November. A career diplomat, Archbishop Buendia has previously served as Apostolic Nuncio in numerous nations, most recently to Romania and Moldova. New Zealand has revised its advice on the use of so-called puberty blockers for young people who may be confused about their gender. Previously, the country's Ministry of Health described the drugs as, quote, safe and fully reversible. Now that description has been dropped. Instead, they now say that puberty blockers stop the progression of potentially unwanted puberty-related physical changes. In a statement this week, they also pointed out that, quote, relatively limited and thin evidence is available on the effects of such drugs. Finally, Mexico's largest ever statue of Jesus was unveiled and blessed on Easter Sunday. The Christ of Peace statue is located at the top of Faith and Religion Hill in Tabasco County in Zacatecas State. The monumental sculpture, which sits upon a pedestal, measures 108 feet high. How wonderful. Well, that's your latest headlines for now. Do join us for more tomorrow. You can also join us at swnews.org for news updates. Shalom.